Okay, today we got a bit of a retrospective review of the On Cloudmonster Hyper, which has quickly turned into one of my favorite long run shoes of all time, despite my initial kind of suspicions around it. This shoe isn't getting updated this year. I think it's getting updated later next year, so it's still got a long time as the current model. So I do think it's kind of worth sharing some thoughts, especially considering that I've gone through 2 pairs of this now. Really love this shoe. So this was initially marketed as a kind of upgrade to the Cloudmonster Daily Trainer, slap a bit of PEBA in it, make it a little bit faster, a little bit more kind of dynamic, I suppose. A lot of people took this to be On's kind of speed trainer, but we did end up getting the Cloudboom Zone, which is the true kind of snappy up-tempo interval shoe, I suppose. Whereas this has kind of fallen into the more long-range daily trainer long-run shoe, which is how I've been using it over the past year and a half. As always, we'll run through it from top to bottom, upper through to outsole. We'll chat about the price point, a few comparisons, and let you know whether this is still worth looking at even after a year and a half with some pretty decent competition coming out. So starting off with some specs, we've got 37.5 mil of foam in the heel with a 6 millimeter drop down to 31.5 in the forefoot. The midsole is made up of a combination of the CloudTech Helion foam, which I'm pretty sure is a olefin EVA blend, really firm. I'm gonna be honest, the CloudTech itself is rubbish without the PEBA foam, but they do have this slab of that PEBA which runs from the forefoot through to probably 2/3 of the way through the shoe. So it's almost like a kind of core of PEBA wrapped up in a frame of CloudTech, and you can see that the CloudTech runs further up the shoe on the medial edge and is empty up till about halfway on the outside edge. Weight-wise, we're coming in at 272 grams in my men's size 10, which puts it right in and around that speed trainer weight category, which is quite nice for a daily trainer and long run shoe, even if the performance here isn't quite up to scratch with those kind of snappier, speedier shoes. Starting off with the upper, I think this is my favorite training shoe upper of all time. This and the Cloud Eclipse from On just seem to be perfect for my foot. We've got a decently rounded toe box with a good amount of room. The lacing system just seems to be so secure that I only really need to deal with the last kind of 2 eyelets to get a secure fit. The tongue is thin but comfortable, protects you from the laces, the heel counter. Good deal of structure back there, plenty of padding in and around there, and then the laces have this kind of silicone coating on them, so when you tie them up, you know that they're gonna stay tied. Laces are a little bit long. It's probably one small critique. I did have to tuck them in to the eyelet system, but other than that, this is a simple, well-refined upper which fits very nicely, locks down easily. Absolutely adored it so far. In terms of sizing, I have gone for a US 10, which could be considered a half size down. I'm probably 50-50 in US 10 versus 10.5. Some brands like Nike, Saucony, Asics all seem to be 10.5, but On, I'll kind of be in a 10, Adidas I'm in a 10 more often than not. So here, I still have a decent amount of room ahead of the toes. I would say that overall, this does fit a half size long. In terms of width, I do think we have a little bit more of a generous midfoot through to forefoot. Little tiny bit of creeping in on that outside edge, but I think most people with a more generous foot shape should be able to get into this shoe. Moving down to the midsole, this caught me by surprise. When I first saw that it was only going to be 50% PEBA and the rest was going to be CloudTech, and not even the good type, not the CloudTech phase that you get in the Cloud Surfer and the Cloud Eclipse, which I actually quite enjoy for its kind of smooth transition, more dense kind of resilient ride. It's got the old standard stuff, which doesn't have that kind of geometry to move you through. It's quite firm, it's quite hard, but I was completely proven wrong. The setup that we've got here kind of gives you this nice, soft, bouncy feeling out of the forefoot, which combines with the frame of CloudTech to give you a perfect amount of structure, stiffness, to keep this shoe moving over those longer distances and to keep your legs feeling fresh. They have it written on the insole, fresh legs are fast legs. I thought that was just a bit cringe, honestly. But after running in this shoe, something about it, the way that the rock is positioned, the way that you get that bounce with the structure, it just seems to keep the legs happy. And I can tick along so easily for 2.5, 3 hours in this shoe with absolutely no problems. It's not the most responsive, it's not throwing you off the front of the shoe, but it's just giving you this nice little reward for getting up front and a little bit of structure to keep you moving. It doesn't bottom out, it doesn't become mushy. And so for me, this has turned into that perfect long run shoe where I can just keep on rolling without having to worry about the shoe falling to bits or, over compressing and becoming too soft to really move forward. What's interesting to me is that I do enjoy this shoe for daily training, but nowhere near as much as I do on the long run. I think that comes down to how the shoe kind of warms up and breaks in. Over a half an hour run, this CloudTech foam setup can be quite firm, a little bit clunky, but once you've got about 45 minutes to an hour in it and it starts to kind of get a bit of warmth through it, it compresses a bit, it really starts to smooth out and the transition starts to come into its own. So for me, this is that kind of dedicated long run shoe. I could happily use this for every long run that I do during a marathon block. I feel like it has just enough pace to kind of get you into marathon effort sections as well, especially when you're getting up into that forefoot, getting into that PEBA foam, that kind of more dense, resilient feeling PEBA. It just seems to work so well for my stride. I can definitely see why a couple of people don't like this shoe, especially if you're a hard heel striker and you're just smacking into that CloudTech section. That would not be as nice as getting up onto the forefoot. It might feel hard, it might feel dense, jarring even, and I can definitely understand that, especially if you're not giving it time to warm up and kind of allow it to smooth out. Yeah, it's probably not going to feel quite as good. But I have definitely met a few people who have kind of said that this is that perfect blend of super shoe, daily trainer. It's not too kind of big and bulky and it's not kind of too radical either. It does feel like you're still running in a standard training shoe, but it does just have that little bit of an edge, a little bit of extra bounce that kind of rewards you. And I think that's what's so special. It is still quite normal, but it just has that extra little bit of oomph that makes you feel good across those longer runs. I also wanted to mention the stability as well. I think what they've done here is actually really clever. The way that they've kind of cut off the CloudTech on the outside edge, but left it running up on the medial edge. It's kind of acting like I guess a J-frame really, kind of like what Hoka's doing with the Arahi 6 and 7, having the firmer foam wrap up around on the medial side, leaving it exposed on the outside edge. I guess it's kind of incentivizing you to, I don't know, kind of roll outwards a little bit more, which works well for me, landing on the outside edge and then kind of going through toe off. I think that's really nice, very stable shoe, even if it's not the most kind of compressive and bouncy and traditionally fun or what people are searching for right now. Overall for me, this is my favorite long run shoe of all time. It has been challenged a little bit by the Nike Zoom Fly 6, but for me, this just continues to be the most natural, smooth, and I guess reliable feeling long run shoe that I've used. Absolutely adore it. Moving down to the outsole, this is fine. It's not great, it's not gonna last forever, especially if you're running on gravel, especially if you're one of those people who smashes into the heel or you always seem to rip off pods of rubber, especially. These just don't seem to have the same level of durability as a fully connected piece, but I would say this is better than some other on shoes like the normal Cloudmonster, their race shoes as well. It is holding up better than that, but yeah, bit of self-selection here. If you know that you smash into the heel, you know that you peel off rubber pods, this has got rubber pods in the heel, so maybe don't grab this one. The grip itself has been fine as well. Dry roads, I've been pretty pleased with how it's performed, and as I said, like I'm getting more up onto the forefoot and midfoot, so I don't really have to stress too much about peeling off those rubber pods. Coming around to the price point, this is where the compliments for this shoe come to a grinding halt, because $320 for what this shoe is, for what this shoe contains, is pretty outrageous, considering that other speed trainers, as I mentioned, have that same setup of super foam, EVA, even a plate in there as well, and they're coming in at $240, $250. To claim that this is worth $320, despite how much I love this shoe, and despite the fact that I would probably pay that much, I think is silly. They could have made this for $290, $280 even, and this would have been one of the best shoes on the market. I would be raving about this shoe every day. I wouldn't even need a shoe review channel. I'll just talk about the Cloudmonster Hyper. But $320, you're just putting it up against shoes like the Super Blast, like the Neo Vista, which all have better technology, more advanced, smooth, comfortable rides. And although I do absolutely love this shoe, and I like it more than those shoes as well, because I kind of prefer that more simple, traditional feel, and I like the feeling of a forefoot incentivized ride, it just isn't worth that much. You've got a majority EVA midsole, you've got Piba foam, which is great and all, but we've had it for years now. The upper is nice for sure, but it's nothing revolutionary, and the durability is going to be average, if not below. $320 is just silly. If you can pick this up on discount for $250, absolutely go for it. I think this is a fantastic long run shoe, and I think that the application of these technologies, although they're not the most advanced, is done really well. But for $320, I just think there's better shoes that you can get more for your money out of, such as a Super Blast, such as a Neo Vista, or some of these other speed trainers like a Boston, like a Deviate Nitro 3, which all have that kind of similar geometry, similar setup. Maybe not quite as comfortable for me, like these are definitely a little bit firmer, a little bit more aggressive, I would say. But yeah, overpriced. A couple of super quick fire comparisons. Zoomfly 6 has more protection underfoot, it's softer, it's smoother, doesn't have as much of a forefoot incentive. The upper on the Cloudmonster Hyper I think is nicer. I'm still leaning the Cloudmonster Hyper, but value for money, go for the Zoomfly 6 every day of the week. Versus the Super Blast, I prefer the Cloudmonster Hyper. I feel like even though this shoe is 30 grams lighter, it just does feel like a lot of shoe underfoot. I don't feel like I'm getting as much compression because the force is distributed on such a wide midsole base. So I prefer the more focused bounce out of the forefoot of the Cloudmonster Hyper. I prefer the upper here as well. And I also like how quiet this shoe is compared to the Super Blast. Most people prefer the Super Blast. If you're paying $320, go for this. But if you can pick this up for $250, that's where that kind of value balance might lie. As I mentioned, Boston 12, quite similar. Top layer of super foam, bottom layer of EVA. This is firmer, more direct, a little bit more punchy. The grip is better, the durability is better, but the upper on the Boston 12 is more harsh. As I said, $320 versus $240. This wins every day of the week, but bring them both down to the same price point. For the long run, Cloudmonster Hyper is the go. For speedier stuff, go for the Boston 12. Pretty much the same thing can be said for the Deviate Nitro 3 as well. Love this shoe as well for the long run, but it's just a little bit more kind of comfort focused in the Cloudmonster Hyper, whereas this is a bit more kind of punchy, straight to the point. It does have a good level of flexibility through the carbon plate though. I do enjoy both of these shoes. This was my third pick for long run shoe of the year last year, up behind the Zoomfly 6 and the Cloudmonster Hyper. Another one is the new Neo Vista 2 from Mizuno, which is a fantastic update. Bouncier layer of TPU foam on top of a more kind of soft, comfortable EVA. This is more focused on the rocker through the stride, whereas this is relying more on a kind of punch into the forefoot, bouncing your back out. This is softer. I feel like I can use this for maybe an hour and a half of running, but I do feel like the softness does get to me, whereas this is that perfect balance of structure and bounce out of the forefoot. I do like both of these shoes, slightly different purposes for me. I think if you like softer, more protective feel, you'll go for the Neo Vista 2, but if you want a little bit more structure, you don't mind a bit more of a traditional feel, Cloudmonster Hyper could be it. And the final one, bit of a curveball, we have the Flow Velocity Elite 2, which I think is similar as a kind of long run shoe performer because of the forefoot bounce. You can kind of focus on getting up onto that rocker point with the Piba foam there. You do have that kind of more firm structured EVA, although it isn't quite as stable with a narrow base. The uppers on both of these are really nice. Durability on the Flow Velocity Elite is not going to be quite as good as the Cloudmonster Hyper. It's not something you'll say very often. It will wear down a little bit quicker, but you can pick this up for about $220. So $220, $250, that sounds about right to me in terms of that cheaper long run shoe. I think both of these are quite nice as a budget pickup. I've just done a review on this one. Check that out if you're interested. So yeah, overall for me, the Cloudmonster Hyper is a shoe which outperforms its specs, I would say. On paper, this shoe should not be anywhere near as good as it is. EVA foam, little bit of Piba, you know, it's not exactly super lightweight or anything like that, but the way that it comes together, it just seems to work so well. And I think there is a growing fan club of Cloudmonster Hyper appreciators who are kind of getting tired of this big, tall, soft, kind of super trainer stack heights and want to go for something which is that kind of blend between your standard trainer and something that's a little bit more special. I really, really enjoy this shoe. I cannot wait for the update, even though it is still a while away. This is my favorite long run shoe of all time.